you looking for valuable business advice to reach that 7-figure revenue mark? Do you want actionable tips to properly navigate through every business challenge you encounter along the way? Let Tersh Blissett and Josh Crouch be your guide in getting you to the top here at Service Business Mastery. Tune in as they sit down with world-renowned authors in business, leadership, and personal growth who share valuable insights about management, marketing, pricing, human resources, and so much more. Let their nuggets of wisdom gold guide you in owning a thriving, profitable, and ever-growing business. Here are your hosts, Tersh and Josh.
Hello, everyone out there in podcast world. Hope you're having a great day. We're going to talk about delegation today, and I'm excited as always. We said that earlier. We're always excited, but yeah, this is definitely one of those topics that it's a buzzword for sure. And I know that Emily, our guest today, Emily Morgan, she has been she's had her business for 15 years, and that's all they do is, they delegate, and I'm excited to learn more about this because this is a topic that I don't do the best job at, and I feel like some of it's ego, and I don't want to relinquish the roles and responsibilities, and then others is nobody can do the job better than I can, but maybe that's ego. I don't know. What's your thoughts on that, Josh?
Maybe a little bit. You probably delegate better than you think you do, though. But delegation, this is my entire time in the home service business was learning how to do this. It's such a hard thing to do, especially for those that are listening who are still in a truck. So you're not only the accountant, the call taker, CSR, you're the sales guy, you're the installer, like you're everything. So giving up one of those things is difficult because you're like, well, I can do it better than anyone I can hire. But the problem is you're also going to be stuck in a truck forever, and you're never going to grow your business to the point where you can have some freedom back in your life and you stop missing birthday parties and soccer games and all this kind of stuff. So that's what we're going to dive into with Emily today. And as Tersh said, we got to find a different word than excited. We got to look up in the dictionary, come up with a different variation of that word so we don't keep using it. But we're excited for this podcast and to talk about how to get more freedom back in your life.
Yep. And the biggest thing for me is Julie and I spoke about this not too long ago, and I was like, you got to delegate some of those tasks. And she's like, by the time I tell somebody I need to do how to do it, it would be just faster for me to just go ahead and knock it out myself. But anyways, with that being said, welcome to the show, Emily.
Hey guys, thank you.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and what you got going on and what led you to actually start Delegate Solutions.
Thank you. Yeah. So I started my career as an admin. So I was supporting others. I worked at University of Penn, for example, then worked at, a clinical research company supporting C-level people, being the project manager. And then I had my son, and I knew that I loved the work I was doing. I loved helping others, but I didn't want to deal with commuting and parking and being on that kind of schedule. So I quickly learned, hey, I could actually do admin work from home. And so I started the company. It was just me 15 years ago, couple of clients. Soon after became a single mom. So was building a company out while raising my son, who's now 14. And just really developed an entrepreneurial sort of bug around, hey, I want to do more than just be the assistant. I want to support others and help more entrepreneurs, because there's a very specific way that we support people that is the most impactful way, which is really all the years of us supporting entrepreneurs and figuring out the exact way that we can help people clear their plates.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's so as we were talking about pre-show, you were remote before it was cool. Now everyone's remote, right? But that's a very neat start. You kind of, especially 15. If you think about 15 years ago, the world was not what it is now.
Yeah.
That's definitely an awesome thing to that you started, and it's cool to see where you've gotten to at this point in your life by doing the remote work and teaching others to do that.
Yeah, for all these years, guys, I was like pounding on the soapbox saying, why can't this be done remotely? Why can't we do things fractionally? Why does it have to be this, pre-existing structure? And overnight it just changed. So that was a wild thing to sort of be a part of, for sure.
What's the biggest hang up that people give you? Like, what's the biggest resistance that you're like, well, my business, I can't do that because of this.
Oh yeah, I mean, everyone thinks that what they're doing is unique and
Yeah.
special. And I'm here to tell you that administratively, it's really not. So that's sort of step one, is understanding that administratively, business needs are business needs. There might be nuances and niches to what you do, but from a support standpoint, it doesn't matter what your industry is. We can still help you.
Yeah, that's really cool. One of the things that I really enjoy about having remote support is the fact that they don't have to be right here. They don't have to be in the same town as us, and we can get people who are very, very good at their job, and they could be all over the country or even all over the world, and provide us with support. And you're like, wow, I never even thought about doing it this way or that way. And this person, because they have experience, they've done this for other people. Like it's especially if you live in a small town, like we're not in a huge area, so we don't have a lot of people. And so the talent pool is not, we're not in New York, or we're not in Atlanta, so we don't have a ton of population wise. And so to be able to have someone that does live in these areas that comes on board, and plus they can work remote from their own home, and so that's a plus too.
Yeah, I mean, you're making my case for me there. You remove the geographical limitations of talent when you can embrace a model like this. A lot of our clients say we take the noise out of the office. So that's sort of, friction, tension, personality, things that you might have to deal with on site. They're not there. And then to your last point, we are trying to bring a delegation system to our work. So we help people figure out what to delegate and how to delegate, and that's a totally different approach than an admin that you're teaching yourself.
Yeah, that's
So
the struggle that I have whenever I reach out to someone about doing it, because we've used like Upworks and programs like that. But the issue that I come up with, and the issue that always presents themselves, is, okay, I have this person for 40 hours. Now I physically have to teach them everything that they're going to need to know how to do. And then if they don't work out, then it's
Right.
like, now it's time to do it for another person. Like it feels like a completely different um, uh, hiring experience. Like you have to hire completely different. So I don't know, maybe you can teach us a little bit about that, or
Yeah, I think
share why how to avoid that whole scenario, I guess.
admin's a very transient industry, so we should
It feels
start with
that way.
And I think what I like to tell people, specifically entrepreneurs, is plan for transition. It's likely going to happen at some point for a million different reasons, but just be prepared for it. And so we try to teach people, don't be reliant on one particular person. That's why I recommend using like a managed service, because it's not your problem anymore. If there's turnover or somebody's sick or you don't have a good personality fit, you're no longer in that seat of having to now manage that on top of your regular job.
Oh,
So
okay.
you guys, do you guys do consulting and like set up the system, or how does the process work? Like if
I was
somebody
gonna ask
calls
that.
you and says, "Hey, what do you guys do, or what kind of things can you do for them?"
Yeah, we're a delegation company. And so we have built a delegation system that we work people through. We help you figure out what to delegate, how to delegate. We put a plan together to make that happen. And then we provide you with executive assistant team that's going to systematically take those things off your plate each day. So it's a full comprehensive support service.
Okay, so you help with the process, like what Tersh was mentioning of finding people that have maybe certain skill sets, and help. Do you help train them, or is that still on the business owner then?
No, our team are our employees. So we come in and we act as your dedicated assistants in a fractional way. We train them
Okay.
on how we support entrepreneurs. And then if there's like specialty things that we're doing for you, you would train the team on that, but we would capture all of that for you. So if there's somebody sick or on vacation, you're never in this position where now you have to figure this out because somebody quit overnight.
Sure, which has never happened, right?
No.
It's a terrifying place to be when you've relinquished all of the to-dos to someone else and you just are like trusting that they're going to do it and then they're gone. So it's a really scary place to be. So that's why we always want to plan for it and have like backstage, we create client guidebooks around how we support you. What are your preferences? What are your processes? Making sure they're captured, things like that.
Do you guys help with, and this is a big one for, I guess, our industry, just because most of the people that own service businesses, they don't really have that administrative mindset of developing processes. And as we all know, processes are literally like the lifeblood of growing and scaling your business.
Mhm.
Do you guys help develop that along with like what the business owner wants to see, or how involved do you guys get with something like that?
Yeah, I mean, process is the path to freedom. Like we believe that firmly, and process is what's going to free you up to step out of your business because in most cases the process lives in your brain, right? And so
Yep.
how do we extract that from you, automate it, and then delegate it is definitely part of how we help our clients.
So
Awesome. Do you
how do you know what you can delegate, I guess is the biggest thing. Cause like there's so much stuff on our plate. It's like I shouldn't be doing this, but I don't know if I could delegate that. Like, how do I know what it is that I can actually delegate?
Yeah, I mean, it's a journey, not a destination. So even if you've been delegating for years and years, there's always going to be more that can come off your plate. So we have an exercise that we recommend called a freedom analysis, where we talk through what you've spent your time on the last few weeks, and we categorize it into different sections. And section one is, I love doing this work. I would do this work forever. And then another section is I hate doing this work and it drains me. And then there's the section of I'm doing it, but I'm not really good at it. And then the fourth section is I'm doing it and I like it, but it's not like my number one thing. And so running exercises like that where you can like objectively segment the work that you're doing and then create an action plan for those specific things.
So
Yeah,
what
I
if you
love
don't like
that.
doing anything in your business?
That's exactly what I was about to ask.
What if you just want to play golf?
That's fine. I think, what I'm in the middle of writing a book called A Culture of Delegation, and I'm really working on this specific point that a big reason why entrepreneurs don't delegate is because they don't know what they want to spend their time on instead. And so we get really comfortable being the hero, solving the problems, putting out fires, making fires,
Mhm.
becoming like the busiest person in our companies that all of a sudden, like, what are we going to do instead? And we can start to attribute our value to that. Like, there's a lot of psychology to that, but there's nothing wrong with like wanting to go play golf, and it's all about creating systems to get those things off your plate so that you can.
Do you ever find that someone doesn't delegate something that they're okay at, they're not great at, but and they don't like it at all, but they have a fear that someone else is royally going to screw it up if they don't do it. So like what comes to mind is like bookkeeping or accounting, and like a lot of business owners will come in and they say, "Look, I don't like bookkeeping. I don't know. I'm not an accountant, but I don't trust other people to do that." Um, do you ever see that?
That was the first thing that I let go of in my business.
Same
Um,
here.
yeah, I mean, for things like that, I think sourcing fractional experts is the way to solve that problem. So, fractional bookkeeper, I have a fractional CFO, I have a controller. So filling those seats, but I mean, first is identifying what the things are that you don't want to do, that you're not good at, and the things that you love to do. Because once we start to get those things off your plate, you're going to create a vacuum of time. And if you really don't know what you're going to refill the time with, you just keep adding more and more junk because it feels normal to be really busy and stressed out and in the middle of everything.
Sorry, I was just changing the banner. Someone was asking about your book. So with shoot, I had a really good question and I can't remember it now. That always happens. So I guess along with delegation, how much of that, and I guess that is that through your process, you decide what can be automated and what can't be automated. Because Tersh and I both love automation and Zapier and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So do you guys, is that something you also help them with along the path?
Yeah, I think, listen, we're not in the business of busy work for the sake of busy work. So wherever
Really? I feel like like it's
wherever there's
privilege.
possible automations, we'll always suggest that. But yeah, I think it's all about figuring out what is the process. Are there steps within the process that could be automated and delegated? And what parts do you still have to contribute to the overall process?
So with the fractional stuff, and we had a marketing guest on a couple weeks ago, and he started talking about like fractional marketing officer. And I've heard of the term, but I guess us in the blue collar space maybe are not as, like, we feel like everyone has to be an employee at their desk or
Full-time.
come in every day.
Yeah.
How, and maybe we've already kind of covered this, but how do you decide what places in your business you don't need a full-time person versus when you need maybe a fractional person would work fine?
I think a fractional person works fine for most entrepreneurs, especially smaller businesses, and especially in those really specialty areas. So for us, we run on EOS, the Entrepreneur's Operating System. We have an accountability chart, and what we'll do is we'll create ghost seats on the accountability chart when we know that we're going to be hiring for that role next. Um, so I think for me, it's like, what are the specialty things? So we have a fractional marketing agency. We have a fractional CFO. There's lots of different like strategic ways to get to talent that doesn't require them to be your employee.
So just to define for people who are listening, a fractional employee is
Oh, a fractional, well, it wouldn't be your employee.
He stopped his
Okay.
question halfway.
It wouldn't be your employee. It would be a consultant type 1099 situation. So like when clients engage us, they engage the company and they're 1099, we're 1099 of them. So you can have part-time employees, but what I'm suggesting is specialists that are fractional, that are working with multiple clients, helping them with whatever that problem
Yeah.
is.
So how do they locate someone like that? Like what's the typical process of finding a fractional employee?
I would ask your network for recommendations.
Okay.
Like I'm part of EO, the Entrepreneurs Organization, and so whenever I'm looking for, like, I just needed someone to review a shareholder agreement, so I asked my network. So I would always start there because they've done business with them.
Okay. Yeah, that's typically how I find. I mean, within our organization, the implementation organization, that I feel like that's a pretty common question that gets asked. Like, I don't need a full-time bookkeeper. Do you know of anybody that does this remotely? And there's tons of recommendations. If there's not already vendor partners in the group already that already do that. So yeah, it's definitely one of those things. If you're listening to this and you're not part of an organization, you're not part of a coaching group, Facebook groups, I mean, they're in specific trades, like, hey, look, do you recommend anybody that does this? Even reaching out to your SCORE mentors, your local SCORE mentor, or your like we have the Georgia University of Georgia. It's a long definition. It's basically, it's like SCORE, but put through University of Georgia. and they're a coaching organization that's nonprofit. So those organizations have people who they could partner with or recommend also.
Yeah, I mean, you can pretty much find a fractional expert for any part of your business. The only employees that I had for a long time were our employees that were delivering the service. So the ones that are supporting the entrepreneurs. Even my own leadership team was fractional for a long time. So I
How
think
many?
you build
But
into it.
so with the fractional stuff, I mean, what does that look like as far as, because obviously I'm assuming being fractional, they still need to know enough about your business to help you move the business forward. Is it like is like a certain number of hours, or how does something like that work as far as the arrangement goes?
Yeah. I mean, I can speak to ours and the ones that I've engaged. So with ours, we sell time-based retainers. So our clients hire us starting anywhere from an hour a day all the way up to full time. Um, and that's like we would use the time for scheduling or planning, helping you book vacation or reaching out to sales leads, doing research. So like the time can be spent however you want, but we do sell retainers. I know the sort of other model to do this is to sell like a results based retainer.
Mhm.
So like my CFO or whatever would say, you're getting this financial statement meeting, this meeting, and these reports. And it's not tied to time, it's tied to like deliverables. And then I guess the third would be more of results. So it's like, you're going to pay me this much and you're going to get this as an outcome, which I haven't figured out how to do that yet in my business.
Sure. We actually have someone that might be able to like have an offline conversation with you because that marketing guest, he does some fractional work, and it's based on results. Like he gets a certain percentage, and and I don't know how that works for other marketing. It's a little easier to figure that
Mhm.
out. I don't know how it would work for different segments of your business, but
Yeah.
sales and marketing are usually pretty easy because it's tied to numbers, but some of the other things aren't necessarily tied to specific KPIs, I guess, unless you create them.
Mhm.
But
Yeah, that's how our
it's
CFO is. Our CFO is results. So it's like not results, but it's you're going to get these reports, and this is going to be done by the end of the month, or by the 10th of the month. You're going to have these numbers and all that good jazz. She's great.
Yeah, I haven't cracked the code on it yet on how to take what we do. Because, we could say, oh, well, we'll do your scheduling, but your scheduling and someone else's scheduling could be so vastly different. Maybe it would even out. I haven't been able to wrap my head around
Oh yeah, I totally get that.
it.
yeah. I guess if you focused on maybe a certain specific business type or something, you could probably come up with that. But yes, everyone is totally different when it comes to that, like dentist versus HVAC versus I don't even know their business. I'm sure there's other examples out there, but they all are unique as far as their call volume, especially like when in Savannah it's 110 degrees. I mean, you
Right.
guys are going to be overloaded.
Oh yeah.
So how do you? And maybe this doesn't have is like culture. We mentioned culture earlier. How do you keep the culture where it's still feeling like somewhat of a team atmosphere versus
Yeah, when they're remote and they're
yeah,
not
it's just a
next to each
different
other and
feel.
talking to each other.
Yeah, I mean, it's very intentional work that we do in that area. So I mentioned we run on EOS, so we have core values, and right off after this podcast, we have our weekly team huddle. The team, everyone shows up. There's like over 40 people there at that meeting on Zoom, and we have a very specific agenda. It's 15 minutes, and that's just how we all check in with each other. Then the team has weekly video meetings with small groups. We have different masterminds that meet. We use Slack. If you've heard of that, it's an instant message platform, and we have a
Oh yeah.
ton of specialty channels where we're sharing the love, or it's a water cooler channel, or it's announcements channel, it's binge your favorite shows channel. So we've done a lot of work to create a community, because as admins, that's a lot of the times what's missing from, like, if they take just a regular admin job, they're kind of like just totally on their own. Whereas we've created this opportunity for us to share knowledge and ask each other for questions, cover each other's vacations, all of that.
Yeah, I like that part of it because like with us, we're actually 100% remote also, and it's kind of different for an HVAC company to be that way.
Sure.
And so we have one of our monitors on each of our rooms is nothing but a Zoom call. It's a Zoom call that stays open all day long, and everybody's in the Zoom call, so we can just unmute and say hey to each other. Um, and it really, like we said at the beginning, it does away with the drama aspect of things, but then we're still able to connect with each other, and like we're almost like our offices are next to each other, but we're actually a very long distance away from each other, but it feels like we're right next to each other because we can just simply unmute and then just ask our question and then go back to muting ourselves back out. But
That's cool.
Yeah, I think the water cooler talks that happen in person are a little different than the water cooler talks that happen in Slack. So it's a little less drama. This person, did you see what they're wearing? All this kind of stuff than stuff that's just maybe what happened in their life or updates. They had a baby or, some kind of monumental moment or something. But I think it's interesting because you take away the human aspect as far as meeting in person, which is not how we're wired. None of us grew up that way. The new generation's probably going to grow up that way, but it's definitely unique. And solving those challenges is like with Slack or with some of these other. And there's a lot of these tools coming on the market. It's like an explosion of software tools right now. But it's very neat and stuff like Zoom, like what we used to use for this, and being able to connect that way. Do you ever have clients? I mean, I know your stuff is all fractional, but maybe they have their own remote employees that they've trained that they somehow get together with them, like just to like once a year, twice a year, just to get that team bonding,
like physically
type
together.
stuff. Yeah, like physically together.
Sure. I can answer, for my business, my team, they don't crave that.
Yeah.
They really don't. So they are getting what they need out of the relationships at work. And so anytime we've tried to do get-togethers, and again, I'm national, so I got
Yeah.
people in every time zone. I mentioned earlier, like everyone that works for me, for the most part, are moms. And so they've built their life a certain way. So I get a lot of pushback if I try. Like, we want to plan a get together next year. We're already trying to pick a date just to try and get like a few key people there. So it really just depends on who's working for you and what they want out of a job. But we don't attract people that want that. So it hasn't really come up for us.
It's funny you mentioned that because in the service industry, we like Josh, he immediately goes back to that thought process. And for years I did the same thing. It's like, hey, we need to see each other. We need to physically embrace each other. Like it's that need of that camaraderie. We can't have camaraderie unless we see each other and can, like, we're in the same room type thought process. And for the several years when I first started this business, and I told everybody that I was going to go and run completely remote, the question I get was, what are you going to do every morning when the guys have to come to the shop? I'm like, well, they aren't going to come to the shop. Like, we're not going to have one. And they're like, well, what are you going to do about that? The camaraderie. And I'm like, well, I'm going to hire people who, like you said, that's not what they want. They're interested in doing their work. And, we can have relationships and everything. But then when we try and put on events, just like you said, getting everybody together, it seems like there's a lot of them that will show up to these types of events, but others are like, that's just not my cup of tea. Like, I hope I don't offend you, but I'm not coming. And you're like, oh, no offense at all.
And I think COVID's like even changed it to more of that extreme. Like, we're all just kind of like in a new lane.
Yeah.
It is a brand new world for sure. With even like in a grocery store, even in, just now, like everyone's spaced out. Like usually used to be like right behind somebody in the line to check out, and now everyone's just, even without the stickers on the floor that they used to have with the 6 feet
Hey,
thing. Like
I'm not complaining because I used to get annoyed. Like I'm standing in line and all of a sudden this cart's like bumping the back of me. Like, get away from me. Like there's no reason for you to be that close to me. Like you looking over my shoulder. No, I don't mind that at all.
It's been nice
Um,
not getting sick, right? Haven't
yeah.
been sick at all.
Well, I want to ask one last thing before we wrap up stuff, and it's the part of your book you mentioned the 90-day delegation, your habit tracker, 90 days and 30 days. Can you dive into a little bit of detail with that? Because I've heard and I've read and listened to podcasts and read books on tracking your time management and tracking in general, and I've heard very generalized, hey, you gotta like take notes of this. And then I've heard other people say, every time you do it, you change task, or even if you're interrupted in the middle of another task, write it down to see what you're doing throughout the day and see how often you're being interrupted with menial tasks that could be, delegated off to someone else. What can you tell me a little bit of detail about that and what your thoughts are on that, the habit tracking?
Yeah, I think our habit tracker at the end of the ebook is really just there for you to pick one thing that you want to try to improve tied to your
Okay.
delegation. And it's just a format, it's like a grid, and you just use it as an accountability tool for yourself. So for that particular tool, you're just picking one thing. But for tracking your time, to me, it's an iterative process. So the delegation system that I built, the first step of it, it's a 5-step process. The first step is called focus. And that's where you're getting really clear on what you want to spend your time on. And I think if you can focus on just understanding that, you can build any sort of delegation into your day as long as you know what you want to do with the time you freed up.
Hmm. I don't even know. Sometimes it's like, okay, what am I going to do now?
Well, it could be you want to go golfing every Friday.
Yeah, that too. Well, so I think one of the biggest fears that a lot of people have is like, okay, now I've delegated, I've taught this person how to do it. And like you said earlier, like what happens when that person quits overnight? And now all of a sudden, once I've delegated, it's not like I'm not doing anything anymore. Now I've filled the rest of all that time slots I've filled with other tasks. And now that person leaves. Now I have double the tasks to do. And so it's like, whoa, what do I do
Exactly.
now? So that's kind of the fear that people have. And I love how, like you mentioned that, you do away with that fear and that anxiety because you take those processes and build those processes out and all that good jazz. But yeah, I just
Yeah,
wanted to mention that again.
we have some best practices when figuring out what to delegate, and one of them is look for the repeatables. So look for things that you're doing more than once, because those are delegation candidates, and we can just turn that into a quick and dirty process, and someone can take that off your plate. Um, so, as you're going through your day and you find yourself doing something over and over again each week, totally something you can delegate. And, from my own experience doing this, one of the things I found is something that I thought was something I'm really great at and enjoy doing, but it was something that someone else could do equally as well. And I was doing it on repeat so I could make it into a process. And so that just basically created a whole opportunity to clear up a lot of time from my plate so I could use it to do more important work. So it might be things that you're really good at and you like doing, but
Yeah.
if it's more than once and someone can do it as well, it's also a delegation candidate.
Mm,
or you can just do
yeah.
what Ron does and hire two people to have backups for everybody. You can have a second string.
Some redundancy there.
We do. Yeah, we have 2 team members on every account, plus a trained backup, plus a success manager. So there's a lot of redundancy there on purpose so
Okay.
that you're never in that position.
That's awesome. That's you probably got Tertia's question a lot. That's probably why you built it that way.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's so with the last thing I wanted to add was something that I've done that everyone here is remote except for my wife that works with me on a daily basis.
Wow.
Is I've used screen share videos to document processes. Literally, like, I'm doing something, I record it. This is what I'm doing. This is why I'm doing it. Here's the steps, that sort of thing. I don't always do that, but I've really tried to create like this massive guide. So that way I can always go to this library and say, hey, I did, this is how you do that task. If we need to refine it, let's edit the video and let's make it a little bit better. But this will get you at least 90% of the way there, which for those that are listening, use Loom. Loom's free, I think, up to 5 minutes or something like that, and just start creating little processes in your business that can be repeatable. If that and otherwise, hire Emily and her team, and she'll do it for you.
Yeah, you're ahead of the curve there. I mean, that's a big recommendation that we would always make, is if you're doing something more than once, record yourself doing it, and hand it off.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So go ahead, Trish.
Go ahead, Josh. Go ahead, bud.
No, I was just going to say, so for everyone that is listening to this, or the people that are watching, the link to Emily's new ebook is they created a link for us. It's delegatesolutions.com/SBM for Service Business Mastery. You can download her free ebook there. And I'm sure that you can easily get in touch with her team through her website, which is delegatesolutions.com. Is there any other way that people generally get a hold of you guys?
No, that's great. We did launch an e-course on delegation. It's called the Elevation Quarter. So if you're someone that wants to work on delegation for yourself with a group of other like-minded entrepreneurs, we do those monthly. So there's a link on that page as well for that.
I think I saw that on there. So it's literally right next. So if you guys go on to delegatesolutions.com/SBM, it's got the guide, it's got the Elevation Quarter for e-learning, and then it's also got, if you want to do a discovery call with Emily, you can also click that link as well.
Cool. Thank you for coming on the show and sharing all your
Thank you,
information
Emily.
with us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. If anybody has any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us and reach out to Emily. Again, click the link and download her ebook and learn lots. That's why you're here. That's why you're listening. So with that being said, I hope you have a wonderful and safe week. We'll see y'all later.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Service Business Mastery. Now that you are equipped with essential business advice from this impactful conversation, you are one step closer to becoming the successful owner of your dreams. If this episode has been helpful to your business journey, don't forget to subscribe to the show, leave a rating, and share it with other owners as well. Visit servicebusinessmastery.com to learn more.